I think I always wanted to test boundaries in every form that I'm working on. And I think at the core, I am an apprentice of the sentence. And so I wanted to see how the sentence works, both within the lineated line of the poem, the lyric poem, and then in prose. And I think it was ultimately propelled by a curiosity. I had no initial determination to finish a novel, but I wanted to see what the questions that I asked in my poems, geopolitical violence, American history, migration, the ontological questions of being human, I wanted to ask them again in a different form. I feel that these questions, to me, are inexhaustible. And so if they are inexhaustible, they should be reenacted in a different form, in a different architecture. So that was the hope. And I never thought I would finish it, but I wanted to see what would happen. I was inspired by Franz Kafka. He had a book called Dear Father. And it was actually, when I saw the book in a used bookshop, I thought it was a novel. I just assumed because it was right next to his other novels. And later, only later did I realize the book was an actual letter that he never sent to his father. And so I like that idea of a message in a bottle flung into the sea and never reaching it. And I think when that happens, when you write under that guise, the question now falls on language itself. Is language enough? If language does not reach its recipient, what is its use? And so the crisis of communication became sort of the crux and the soul, if you will, of the novel. What do we say when we have a voice? And when we have a voice but do not have a listener, does it matter to still speak? Does language change anything for the speaker, for the writer? So it's an existential question in the soul of the book. And so the letter was a convenient form. It also allowed me detours. The letter allows for an essayistic detour for have exposition and meditations. In this sense, I was inspired by Marguerite Duras heavily. Of course, Duras did not have an epistle in The Lover, but it felt like such. It was so intimate, and the way she maneuvered through vignettes allowed for detours. And I felt like the detour as a form was very queer to me. It refused linearity. It refused a straight, clear plot, and it kept on doubling back on itself. And the letter allows that quite potently. I like the autobiographical project, and I think it's actually a project rooted in American fiction at its genesis, beginning with Herman Melville. People forget that Moby Dick is an autobiographical novel. Melville lived that exact life. And from there, you go to Hemingway, J.D. Salinger, Sylvia Plath, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison's first book, The Bluest Eye, all autobiographical. And I think in the American sort of tradition, I think the self as a site of self-knowledge, like what is the self in a country that has been founded on genocide and destruction, like that friction in as far as measuring the self, articulating what is a selfhood on stolen land. And a history so rich in conflict feels like the perfect site of drama for me. And I think, in a way, maybe this is why so many American writers have written autobiographical novels, to see where they stand in such a complicated, violent, and bloody history. And so I felt myself working in those guises. I was interested in using the context of my life as a foundation. So I would say 10% of this novel is based on my life, the context, right? A protagonist named Little Dog growing up in Hartford, born in Vietnam. But the animation the rest of the house, the windows, the design, the roof, all of that is the work of the imagination. And I think there's a reason why I could never write a memoir, because ultimately I think I'm a coward, right? I think if I were to ask people in my family or people who experience it, if I were to ask them and to interview them for a memoir based on facts, I think I would be in tears, very quickly. And so I think for me, fiction is the perfect form, because it's almost like creating a simulation, a parallel universe, a what if, right? I get to ask questions to these characters in ways that I would never be able to ask the people in my life, because it would bring them too much pain. And so in this way, I prefer the novel almost as an alternative treatise to a potentiality.